Hello class, in this video I'm going to give you guys a quick introductory or basic review of the forensic tool we're going to be using next week. That tool is called ProDiscover Basic. We're going to be using version 6 in this lab, in this next week's lab, in this video tutorial. However, the latest edition of ProDiscover Basic is version 7. So if you guys are thinking about continuing to learn more about computer forensics or want to at least play with the newest tools, you can do that at the Tech Pathways website and download version 7 and use it to learn more about computer forensics or be able to understand more about what we did in lab. One of the great things about the ProDiscover Basic edition is that it's all-in-one package. You guys heard me talk about the forensic investigation methodology last week, where we start with the verification and end in reporting. Well, the ProDiscover Basic edition gives you enough functionality to actually take you to most of these steps, and I'll show you guys how it does that through this quick video tutorial. Right before we begin, just want to let you guys know that I created an image using that FTK imager of a Windows XP machine. It's about 2 gigs in size, and from that FTK imager it actually gave me a verification TXT file. And again, we talked about earlier, when you do evidence acquisition, you definitely want to verify you have the exact same image as your source device. And this one, the way it does that is it actually goes out there and looks at the source device or the physical disk, and it creates a checksum or hash of that file, and then it goes in and acquires the evidence file, and then afterwards it creates another hash for the actual output or your copy, your forensic copy of that device, whatever it is. And then it compares those two hashes, and if those hashes match, which most of the time they should, or they should all the time if you want to have a forensically sound system, then it'll give you a verified. If this verified is not complete properly, you definitely want to check, see if something happened, because in order to go through a sound forensic process, you want to make sure you have a verified system. Okay. So to get started, go ahead and open the ProDiscover Basic. We'll go ahead and do that. And what you'll notice is right off the bat, what it's going to do is it's going to give you this launch dialog. And this launch dialog is really one of 3 things. It allows you to either create a new project, open an existing project, or open a recent project. Right now what we're going to do is create a new project, and at this point it's going to actually ask you for information. For example, your project number or evidence number. It's going to give you a project file name if you do have something different that you want to call it. And typically, if you work for a large company and you're doing e-discovery or some type of computer forensics, they'll have a naming convention for your evidence records. So those will be provided to you. And then you can also provide a description. Now this description is great to enter information about that second step from the methodology process, the system description. Here you can enter information about the type of device you recovered it from, if it was a desktop or a laptop, the serial number of the desktop or laptop, where you found it, when you found it, and so forth and so on. ProDiscover itself will give you information about the image itself. If it's, for example, if it's an NTFS image, it'll tell you that it is an NTFS image. It'll tell you the size of the image, the number of clusters, etc. But the description should also be used to tell things that are extrinsic to the drive itself, and in other words, where it was found, what type of machine it was recovered under, if it's a USB thumb drive, what does it look like, etc. So we'll go ahead and just put information here, nothing much, and I'll go ahead and say open. Now when you open, this is the home view or the main screen view of ProDiscover. You'll notice a couple things. On the left side, you'll notice this tree view. This tree view will actually provide you most of the links that you'll need to work with your evidence. It's going to allow you to add, to view contents, and to view the different types of artifacts you might find within a drive. On the right side, you have the work area. The work area is going to allow you to see the files or the content that is within these different types of selections. So for example, if I click on the content view here, it'll give me what the content of that folder is, or that disk is, or that internet history is, and it'll present it to me here. Now, it's going to be a whole bunch of files in this area, so what happens is when you click on a file or an artifact in this work area, you're actually going to see the contents of that file in the data view area, which is this bottom part here. Okay, so let's go through the basics real quick. One of the things that you typically want to do through the methodology is acquire evidence. So you can do that through the evidence category here, and you have three different choices. You can either capture and add an image. So for example, if you don't want to use FTK Imager and you have a drive that's connected to your machine, you can go ahead and say capture and add image. That will forensically capture your image or your evidence and then add it as an image to ProDiscover. If you already have an image file, you can go ahead and import that image file. If you acquired it through FTK Imager or some other type of tool, you can do that through here. Or if you have a disk that's connected to your machine that you want to review or you want to do analysis on, you can do that as well. Again, just a quick note here, you typically want to work on a copy of your evidence file. So when you click on disk and you actually are looking through the disk, you're working directly on that image file or that evidence file, and that's typically not recommended. So what I recommend is either capture and add an image or acquire an image and then add it through the image file selection there. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So what I did earlier, as I explained, is I actually created this DD file using FTK Imager. So all I'm going to do is select that file and say open. And it doesn't take very long, and you don't really notice any difference except when you start looking at the content view and the cluster view. This image or images selection here did not have a plus or open selection. Now it does, and now you can see it actually has or image added to it. And if I open that, it actually gives you the contents of the C volume. So there they are. Okay, going on through or methodology, that was how you did the acquisition or the add evidence. The next thing is a timeline analysis. Again, the one thing I found with ProDiscover, it doesn't give you a real nice description or a real nice view or report of the timeline analysis. But as I indicated, there's multiple ways to create timeline analysis, and typically one way that you might do it is actually to review the different artifacts and then add information about that. For example, if you wanted to see when a certain file was created, let's see if we can find one here. Here we go. When a certain file was added or imported or created, you can go ahead and do that by looking at the file and then looking at the created date or modified date. And that's how you start creating your timeline analysis, is by noting those dates and times and then posting them on a spreadsheet or on a file or something of that matter. Other tools provide you other options, but a timeline analysis definitely can just be a Word document with dates of when actions occurred, and then the times they occurred, and then maybe when files were opened or deleted, when a user logged on or logged off. So that's your timeline analysis. Your media analysis is actually done through multiple ways here. Typically, you can do media analysis in multiple facets. You can just look at different files. So again, that's the way we just did. We just looked at the file, and that you can do it through the content view, or you can look at information about the image itself. You can do that through the cluster view. That'll give you information about the clusters within this drive. And this one, of course, the first one there, you'll see it's a different green, a darker green shade. It's the actual boot sector, and that gives you information about what type of filing system you're using here. So this is an NTFS filing system. And then for other type of media analysis, what you can do within ProDiscover is add them individually. And what I mean by that is, for example, let's say I want to look at the Internet History view or the artifacts within Internet History. In this case, if I look within the work area, I really don't have any information. And the reason that is that ProDiscover requires you to point it to the files where the Internet History DAT files are, so that it can populate that viewer and provide you the right information. So the way you do that is you go to the content view, and then you go to the folder where you typically find Internet History files. In Windows XP is usually within a Documents and Settings folder, and then within a individual user. What I typically do is I just select the entire Documents and Settings folder because I want to look at everybody's activities. I don't care what user it is. That way I get a better scope of the evidence that I'm looking at. And who knows, the suspect might have used different accounts when they were logged into the machine. So what you do in ProDiscover is you do a right click on the folder where the artifact may be contained, and then you add the information depending on what you want to do. For example, here I want to do find internet activity. And what will that do, and you'll notice pretty quickly, is it actually went out there and it looked for files with a DAT extension, DAT extension. And when it found them, it actually came back into the Internet History Viewer and populated them. So there you go. So that gives you more information in the work area as to what type of different URLs or selected files were found for Internet history. And then once you want to look at an independent one, you can just go ahead and click on it and either double click on it or single click. Now this one doesn't give you a lot of information, but you'll see there's other ones that will. The information it will give you here in the work area is the URL information. So for example, what websites were visited. In this case, you can see there was a Microsoft, Google, whitehouse.gov, and gunsamerica.gov. It gives you a file name about the account that used them. It also gives you information about last modified and last accessed. So that's some of the stuff I'll give you there. I'm not going to take you through every single one of these because otherwise the video will get too long. But I definitely recommend that you guys go out to the ITM website, the class website, and look at the ProDiscover 6 guide. That's going to give you information about how to populate all of these different views. Another one that I'll show you real quickly is a registry view if you want to populate that. Typically you can find that within the Windows folder. So you just click on it, right click, and then say Add Registry Viewer. And it's easy as that. It goes in, it looks for the different registry keys or files, and then it'll start adding those folders, and you can look through those as well. And again, that gives you a lot of good information there as well. So we'll click out of those. Okay. So that's pretty much for the media analysis. Again, this is the way you would do it. You can just populate it and then be able to analyze those different artifacts as well. The next process within the methodology is the string or byte search. And again, one of the greatest reasons to do a string or byte search is because it's real quick, and it also because it searches every different area of your evidence file. If it's a hard drive or a USB thumb drive or whatever it wants. But it actually goes down to the hex level and binary level and looks for patterns that match whatever search string you gave it. And the way you do that in ProDiscover is you actually go to the search menu here and you click on it. Now one of the things to notice is that you have different types of searches. You can do a content search, which is just typically your string analysis or file name or words or ASCII terms that you want to do. You can do cluster search if you have a certain type of pattern you might want to find within a cluster. Registry search if you want to search the registry for a certain type of pattern, or even the event log. For example, if you have an event log that you want to search for, maybe the startup event log, or the shutdown event, or maybe a log on, log off for a user. Those are different things you can do that as well. And then also within Internet history, if there's a certain type of website you might be looking at or looking for, and you want to do it through here, it'll definitely allow you to. So for example, that whitehouse.gov was one type of URL that you can search through this Internet history. Now one thing to note real quick is you can do those searches in either ASCII or hex. If you have the ASCII, just normal characters, you can do that as well. If you convert those normal characters into hex, you can also do that as well, and it'll look for both patterns. Okay, let's go to a content search. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a quick search for a certain key term that I know that I searched for last night when I was creating this image, and that is the word pipe. Okay, so what you do is you type in the ASCII pattern that you wanted to find, or the word. You select the image file, because you might have 4 or 5 different images in here when you added them, and then all you want to do is then go ahead and say OK. And what's going to happen is it's going to go out through the entire evidence file and search for it. As you can see right now, it's doing a search for the page file through the page file.sys, and then it'll go through different files. And then on the right side, it gives you a status bar as to what's going on. You know, how long is it taking, and of course, as the status bar increases, then your completion time is reduced. Once it finds, or once it does a search, what will happen is it will come back and give you the results in the search results menu. And again, depending on what type of result or search you ran, will depend on where the results will come through. So for example, we did a content search, so that's where the results came through. So one thing you can do at that point is go back to the work area and look at the different files, and then be able to actually review those files within the data view area. And again, we were looking for the word pipe, so then what you can do is within this file somewhere there must be the word pipe. And there you go. It looks like there was a URL that was visited at this location, and one of the files that was actually seems to be downloaded or at least opened was this pipebomb.txt file. So there you go. That's how you do, or that's how the string search works for you. And again, it's a very quick method of searching for different keywords. And typically, when you do an investigation, you build a list of keywords that come through either because of information they're giving you, such as a social security number maybe they want to search for, a name of an individual, an address, a phone number, a credit card number. I mean, the list is endless, and you can just go ahead and type those in as regular ASCII or hex, and then be able to search the entire drive for that. So that's a great way to do that. Okay, the next process in the methodology is data recovery, and basically what that means, and we talked about it in class, is just undeleting or recovering data that's been deleted. On this typical, or this a certain image, I didn't really delete a lot of content, so I don't think I'm going to find anything. But if you did want to recover something that was deleted, you want to go into the content view folder. And then within the content view, you typically have a deleted file that appears in red. However, this one is not a deleted folder, it's just a system folder that's a special file. So two things would occur. You would actually see it in red, and you would also see right here where it says deleted, it would say yes. And of course, if I go through here, there's none of them that say yes. But if you were to find one that's deleted, what you would do, and it said yes, and you want to recover that file since it was deleted, all you would have to do is go to the file itself, do a right click on the file, and then you would say copy file, and then all you have to do is just copy it to an external destination, and that would be it. The file would be undeleted at that point. So if I go into the desktop, there's that boot.ini file that I just undeleted. And that's also another way to be able to extract information that you can't open through the native viewers within Windows. Certain files you're not able to look at through either ProDiscover or Windows. You can actually copy the file and then open it with the right viewer. Another great feature of ProDiscover Basic is that if you do have a file that has a native viewer within Windows, is that it will automatically launch that for you. So for example, I know within the administrator account, I have a folder within, or a file within my pictures that I downloaded, and it's this one here, Washington DC, and it's a JPEG. So if I want to view that, all I have to do is just double click on it, and automatically the photo viewer opens up with that particular file there, or that image. Okay, let's go ahead and close that. Okay, and that's pretty much for recovering data. That's all you have to do is do a right click and then copy the data out to your external device, and it copies that for you. So the last thing I wanted to show you for now is how to, or the last step of the methodology is reporting results. And what I wanted to show you is how to capture notes within ProDiscover about certain artifacts you find. So for example, this JPEG that we're looking at here, let's say it's a great evidence piece for some reason. It's the smoking gun, or it ties back to another evidentiary file, or it tells you information that you want to capture in the notes so that you remember later, or it's something that you want to provide to someone about how you found it, where you found it, or why it makes sense to record it into a report. One of the examples that I give here is when I'm doing an investigation for computer abuse, let's say pornography on a computer, and I find pictures that are pornographic in content, I typically add a note about that picture. It's either where did I find it, if there were multiple pictures that were found, possibly what led me to get to that picture, and things of that nature. But to add a note in ProDiscover, what you need to do is click on the little, once you select the file, is click on the little square to the left, and what that will do is add this, or open up this add comment box. And the add comment box will automatically provide you the information as to the destination or the path to that file. So as you can see, it's saying we're going to add a comment for file or folder at this path. And of course, the end of the path is this JPEG file. At this point, this is where the documentation again plays a key role in your evidence. So you want to be as descriptive as possible about why this evidentiary element or this artifact actually matters. And here you can type in the information. For now, I'm just going to type in information. But again, you want to be as complete as possible. And then all I have to do is click OK. Okay, so that's it. You've added a note, and I'll show you where that note actually went to. So the last part again for the methodology is reporting, and what you have at the very top is a report menu. So if you click on it, it actually gives you a nice little report in the work area. And that report by default will contain some information that's real critical, and it's real nice to have. For example, of course, I'll give you the project number and project information or description. That's why, again, when you added that description information at the beginning, that's really important, because then that's just part of your project file, and you can go ahead and include that in your report right at the beginning or right here through this file. It gives you the names of the images that you actually imported and the type. So this is the image name, and we know it's a DD file, so there it is. It tells you about the time zone information about that file. If it's NTFS or if it's some other type of operating system or file system format, it will typically give you a time zone. But if it doesn't, that's also where it would be very nice to include it in your project description. For example, if you have a USB thumb drive, that may or may not present a time zone information. So if it doesn't, that'd be a great. This would be a great location to add that information. A couple more items that gives you. It gives you the total drive information. So if it is a hard drive or a volume, it's going to give you that information here about the total size. So it's about 2 gigs for this one. It gives you information about the hard disk. And if you had 3 or 4, it gives you all those volume or drive information here, or actually post it for you. And then towards the bottom here, it gives you information about the different notes or comments you made throughout your report. For example, the one we just noted on was that Washington DC picture, and that came through here. So if you look at it and we move over to the right a little bit, you'll see that there's the file. And what it does at that point is it actually gives you a lot of great information about that particular file. For example, it automatically does a checksum, so you have that automatically, so you can compare it to if you exported it. Let's say you exported it and gave it to someone. It would automatically have that checksum for you, and they can actually do a checksum against that same file with another tool, and you can compare both of them and say, yep, that one came out of, at least it's identical to the one that's on your machine. And then it also gives you information about when the file was created and modified, if there's that information. So there's your created, last access, modified, last access, etc. Okay, it gives you information about the starting cluster and end cluster. That's important if you're using other tools like Encase, and you're using ProDiscover and you want to tell somebody, hey, I found this file, but they're asking you where. What you can typically do is go out there and say, I found it in start cluster, 50,645, and it ends in 50,665, and that will provide them a location to that file itself. And then it gives you some ACL security information about the file. Here's the investigator. Here's the comments that I made for it. So that's why comments are critical, because that will be part of your report. And then it'll give you information about the file. Who created that file? I can tell it's probably an administrator at this level with the 500 group. And then it tells you the type of permissions that it had as well. So if you're in an Active Directory environment, this can actually give you a SID or an identity number, object identity number for a particular AD account that may belong to one of your Active Directory users, and you can tell at that point that that Active Directory user was used, or that account was used in creating that file. So some great information there. Now, if we had run more information in the tree view here, like we've maybe made some notes on the registry view, or the event log view, or the internet history viewer, we would actually see those notes populated right here. So that's another way for the report to be populated. Once you have all the information, that's basically the end of your report. And typically this is considered a technical report. I typically have 2 types of reports. I have one that has all my evidentiary evidence in it, or all my artifacts, and I print that typically through the tool, whether it's Encase or ProDiscover. And then I have another type of report that gives me more information about the timeline analysis, and more about the process that I used, and also some of the tools that I used that I can present then to the investigator or the court or whoever it is, so that they have that information as well. And then they have those 2 different reports. Okay, and so that gives you a brief introductory to the ProDiscover Basic. Again, I highly recommend you guys go to the ITM website and download the ProDiscover Basic guide for version 6, because we are going to be using it in the lab. And it'd be great if you guys have at least a cursory review or introduction and knowledge to that or to this tool, so that when you get in there and start working on the lab, at least it feels somewhat familiar. All right, thank you for joining me. Hello class, one part that I forgot to explain to you guys that's crucial and important for your lab is how to export a report. Once you've finished your report and you have everything you need, the way to export the report is you click on the report tab, go to action, go down to export, and then make sure RTF is selected, click on browse, select your destination, name your report, click save, click OK. And what that will do is basically export an RTF file that you can then open with Word and be able to modify that report or turn it in for your lab. That's it. Thank you.